Thank you. I also want to thank a cast of DUSP alums who've been involved in various parts of this research. You can see them here: Jacob Faber, Reed Jordan, and Laura Delgado. So in the summer of 1910, George McMechen moved to a home on McCullough Street in Baltimore. McMechen was a graduate of Yale Law School and an attorney in the city. His wife, Anne, was a school teacher. Geographically, their move was short, but socially it was significant. The McMechens were black, and their new neighborhood was predominantly white. The McMechens' white neighbors demanded action, and one neighbor drafted an ordinance which made it illegal for a white person to use as a residence any building located on a predominantly black block, and vice versa. The Baltimore City Council enacted the ordinance in December, and cities nationwide quickly adopted identical policies. This is the operative text of the ordinance, and these are some of the other cities that passed these policies. The broader context for these laws was the rise of Jim Crow's caste system of racialized terror and the Great Migration that was beginning to transform U.S. cities. So I'm interested in 4 different research projects that arise from these ordinances. First, from the perspective of urban politics, why do some cities adopt these ordinances and not others? Second, from the perspective of urban sociology, what is the relationship between passage of these segregation ordinances and white supremacist violence? Third, from the perspective of property and civil rights law, how do these ordinances change judicial conceptions of property rights and regulations? And fourth, from the perspective of social movements and collective action, how did opponents of segregation mobilize against these ordinances? So I'll share some preliminary results for the first 3 questions, and research on all of these is still ongoing. In terms of what quantitatively differentiates cities that passed these ordinances from those that did not, cities that passed them were more dense, they had lower home ownership rates, and they had a higher share of the foreign-born population in school. And the last one suggesting that part of this may be related to labor competition and changing boundaries of race and immigration. And I'm sparing you all of the agonizing details of gathering this data. In terms of the relationship between these ordinances and white supremacist violence, cities that passed these policies were 4 times more likely, subsequent to the passage of the ordinance, to experience white supremacist violence, a white mob attack on black residents. And then higher rates of white supremacist violence were also associated with lower rates of white school attendance and higher rates of black school attendance, suggesting that labor competition may play a role, and also that these ordinances may have served as elite signals legitimating white supremacist violence, not unlike what we are seeing today. Finally, the relationship between ordinances and judicial conceptions of property rights are also very striking. You can see in the left column that the first 3 state courts to consider these ordinances all struck them down. And you can see excerpts of those decisions emphasizing theories of property rights, a kind of natural right theory of property rights. And in the right column, you can see a more utilitarian theory of property rights. And I'll end there. Thank you.